All right, get ready to dive deep because today we're tackling Hashgraph. You want to know how it works, what makes it different, and why it even matters. Buckle up.
Yeah, it's a wild ride for sure. And a timely one as we rethink, well, trust in this digital age.
Absolutely, and we're going all in. We've got insights straight from Hedera, a deep dive into their white paper, even some comparisons with other systems, like Stellar. By the end of this, you'll be fluent in decentralized trust.
It's a fascinating approach, challenging the old ways of thinking about these systems.
Okay, so let's kick things off with a phrase that sounds more like high school drama than cutting-edge tech. Gossip about gossip. But before you think we're dishing about who's dating who, this gossip is about how Hashgraph makes sure everyone's on the same page, that everyone agrees on what happened when the order of transactions.
Exactly. It's all about achieving consensus. See, in Hashgraph, instead of nodes directly shouting about transactions like, hey, I just sent X amount, it's more about, hey, everyone, guess what I told so-and-so about this transaction?
So it's like spreading rumors, but the rumors are about who knows about the important stuff.
In a way, yeah. It's about building a web of knowledge. Each node creates this web, and together they form the Hashgraph, a shared history of everything that's gone down.
So the Hashgraph is like a constantly updating record of all the chatter, all the communication on the network.
Exactly. And that's where this idea of Byzantine fault tolerance comes in. Think of it like this. Even if some nodes go rogue, start spreading false rumors, the system as a whole is strong enough to stay secure.
Okay, so this gossip is what keeps Hashgraph tamper-proof, which is a big deal when it comes to something like digital transactions, right? Especially in a world moving towards decentralization. We need to know that the systems we're relying on can't be manipulated.
Right. Hashgraph's approach, where everyone has this constantly updated view of the network's history, that's what builds that trust.
And one thing that struck me in Hashgraph is asynchronous. So there's no need for a central clock or a single point of failure calling the shots. That's got to make it incredibly flexible.
Exactly. Imagine a dance where everyone knows the steps, but can join in at any time, no need for a conductor. Nodes reach a consensus on their own, organically, making it way harder to attack.
So even if one part of the network stumbles, the music and the dancing keep going?
Love that analogy. It's resilient, adaptable, perfect for decentralization.
Makes sense. But I'm curious, how does it stack up against blockchain?
Great question. Because both are distributed ledgers, but their approach, totally different. Imagine blockchain like a tree, constantly being pruned as it grows. Only one chain of blocks is the truth, which can cause bottlenecks.
So it's like rush hour on a single-lane highway. Things can back up.
Exactly. And it requires a ton of energy think mining, where computers race to solve complex problems just to add to the chain. Hashgraph. More like weaving a tapestry, every bit of information, every transaction woven into the fabric.
So instead of a race, it's a collaborative effort.
Precisely. And no need for that energy-intensive mining. It's potentially way more efficient, environmentally friendly, and we're talking speeds of hundreds of thousands of transactions per second. That's more than Visa.
Whoa, like comparing a horse and buggy to a bullet train, that speed could be revolutionary.
Absolutely. And then there's the issue of forks. Think of those moments where the ledger could split, creating different versions of the truth. Blockchain has to pick a path, potentially discarding valid information. Hashgraph. Built-in fork prevention.
Like having a GPS that keeps everyone on the same road, no detours or wrong turns.
Exactly. They use a system of address books, signed by most of the nodes, a constantly updated agreement on who's trustworthy. Almost impossible for a deceptive fork to take hold.
That's reassuring, especially when you think about the impact these forks can have like on a cryptocurrency's value. Seems like Hashgraph tackles these challenges head on.
Absolutely. Now let's zoom in on the Hedera network itself, a public network built on this Hashgraph consensus we've been unpacking.
And this is where their cryptocurrency HBAR comes into play.
Exactly. Hedera wants to be this secure, scalable platform for all sorts of applications, and HBR is a key part of that.
And it's governed by this council of up to 39 global enterprises, which is an interesting choice. They help ensure things run smoothly, especially in these early stages. But the plan is for Hedera to become completely permissionless eventually, so anyone can operate a node, right?
That's the idea, striking that balance between establishing trust and opening things up, aiming for a future where the network is truly in the hands of its users.
Like building a ship while sailing it, not an easy task. But how does HBR fit into all of this? You mentioned staking earlier, right?
Right. So HBRs, they're used to pay for services on the network, but they also contribute to security through staking. Think of it like this. More HBRs you hold, the more weight your vote carries in the consensus process.
So it's a way to actively participate in the network's security and governance.
Exactly. And then there's proxy staking. Let's say you want in on staking but don't have the resources to run a node. You can essentially lend your HBARs to someone who does.
So pooling resources to strengthen the network, giving everyone a chance to benefit. I love that. This is all making sense now. But can we get real world for a second? I'm curious about how Hedera is being used today, tangible applications.
Absolutely. Let's dive into those use cases because Hedera's potential goes way beyond just cryptocurrency. So ready to see Hedera in action. Take Avery Dennison, for example. They're huge in labeling and packaging. They're using Hedera to track a product's journey, making sure it's the real deal every step of the way.
No more fake sneakers or shady meds. Tell me more.
Exactly. Imagine scanning a product with your phone and seeing its whole history from where it was made to how it got to you, like a digital passport that guarantees authenticity.
That's massive for industries battling counterfeits, like luxury goods or pharmaceuticals. Consumers could finally shop with confidence.
Absolutely. And think about food safety, tracing your food back to its origin, ensuring it's safe and ethically sourced.
Okay, that's amazing. What about that whole digital identity thing we touched on earlier?
Right. Sealager is on it. They're using Hedera to create a decentralized identity system for credit unions. Imagine having control over your own financial data, your credit history, loan applications, all managed securely and transparently.
So instead of those big credit bureaus, it's more community-based, putting the power back in the hands of individuals.
Exactly. More control over your financial life, a fairer system. It aligns perfectly with this whole move towards decentralization, empowering individuals.
Love it. This isn't just about tweaking the system, it's about changing the game entirely.
Exactly. And it doesn't stop there. Think healthcare. The Coupon Bureau is using Hedera to track and manage pharmaceutical coupons.
So cutting down on fraud and making sure those coupons reach the people who need them.
Precisely. Patients get their meds easier, and the system becomes more efficient, more trustworthy. Everyone wins.
Okay, so we've gone from sneakers to medicine to financial systems. This is blowing my mind. It sounds like Hedera is all about building a more efficient, trustworthy, and transparent digital world.
You got it. And these are just a few examples of what's already happening. As more developers jump on board, we can expect even more innovation.
I can't wait. It feels like we're on the edge of something big, like the early days of the internet.
It really does. And just like the internet, we're only scratching the surface of what's possible with Hashgraph.
This deep dive has been amazing, but let's take a step back for a second. Are there any limitations, any potential downsides we need to consider? Every rose has its thorns, right?
Right. No technology is perfect. Hashgraph is still relatively new, so it hasn't been tested on the same scale as something like blockchain.
So there could be unforeseen challenges as it grows.
It's possible, but the core math of Hashgraph that's been rigorously tested, and Hedera is working hard to ensure the network can handle massive growth. They're in it for the long haul.
And they've got that Council of Enterprises providing guidance, right?
Exactly. But that council structure, while it does provide stability, it also raises questions about decentralization, especially compared to community-driven projects.
Because it's not entirely in the hands of the users, at least not yet.
Right. Some worry that this council-based approach might limit the platform's openness, potentially stifle innovation down the line. It's a trade-off: control versus openness.
It's a balancing act, for sure. Now, I've heard some people say that Hashgraph is pretty complex under the hood. Does that make it harder to adopt?
I'll admit, the gossip about gossip and virtual voting, it can sound a bit intimidating at first.
Yeah.
But once you get the basics, it's actually quite elegant.
And the Hedera team has done a great job explaining it. Clear analogies, helpful visuals.
Absolutely. And honestly, for most users, those technical details won't even matter. What they'll notice is a faster, more secure, more efficient online experience. Think of it like driving Lex. You don't need to know how the engine works to get where you're going.
Perfect analogy. As the technology matures, those complexities will fade into the background.
Exactly. Remember how complicated computers used to be? Now, kids use them with ease.
It does feel like we're in those early stages, a bit like the internet boom.
Absolutely. And just like the internet, we're just beginning to explore the possibilities with Hashgraph.
This whole deep dive has been eye-opening. But can you sum it all up for us? Why should the average person care about this?
The big takeaway. Hashgraph is changing how we think about trust and consensus in the digital age. It has the potential to be faster, more secure, more efficient, and more sustainable than the systems we rely on today.
So not just an upgrade, a total system overhaul.
Exactly. It's early days, but the potential impact on industries, on our lives, it's huge.
Yeah.
Definitely something to keep an eye on, especially for anyone interested in the future of tech.
You've convinced me. I'm definitely paying attention now. But what about those of us who aren't tech wizards? Can we still be a part of this?
Absolutely. Tons of resources online. Start with Hedera's website. They've got white papers, documentation, videos, all in plain English. And there are great online communities too. Connect with other enthusiasts, learn from the experts.
So join the conversation, help shape the future.
Exactly. And if you're a developer, the tools are there to start building on Hedera right now.
It's like the Wild West out there. So much potential, so much to explore. I love it. But we've only scratched the surface of what Hedera can do. Can we dive into some real-world examples of how this technology is being used right now?
Absolutely. Let's explore some of the projects already using Hedera to tackle real-world problems.
You know, it's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. Hashgraph is challenging this whole idea of trust as we know it. We're so used to banks, governments, big tech. They're the ones calling the shots. But Hashgraph is like, hold on, what if we flipped the script, made it more democratic?
It's a huge shift. It's saying trust doesn't have to come from the top down. It can emerge from the network itself, from a shared consensus. That's powerful stuff, especially in a world where so many feel like they're not being heard.
It's like Hashgraph is pointing toward a future where power is more evenly distributed, where everyone has a voice. As someone who's clearly passionate about the potential of technology to create a more equitable world, that's gotta be exciting.
Oh, absolutely. Just imagine a world where the systems we rely on are inherently more fair, more transparent, where we don't have to blindly trust institutions. That's the promise, isn't it?
It's like rewriting the rules, not just for the digital world, but for society as a whole. Okay, but let's address the elephant in the room. Every powerful tool can be misused. What about the potential downsides of Hashgraph? What keeps you up at night?
That's the million-dollar question with any new technology, right? It's a double-edged sword. Could Hashgraph be used for malicious purposes? Of course, just like any tool.
Could you give me an example? How could someone actually misuse it?
Well, one concern is the potential for, let's say, really sophisticated fraud. Imagine using Hashgraph's immutable, transparent ledger to create incredibly convincing counterfeits or to launder money. We have to have strong security measures in place.
So it's not a matter of if it can be misused, but how we prevent that from happening.
Exactly. And Hedera knows that. They've made security a top priority. They're constantly evolving their defenses.
That's good to hear. What about this idea that decentralization could lead to chaos? If no one's really in control, then who's accountable when something goes wrong?
That's a valid concern. Decentralization without any accountability could create a very messy, risky situation. That's why governance is such a hot topic right now, not just with Hashgraph, but with all these distributed ledger technologies.
So how does Hedera address that? It feels like they're walking a tightrope between control and openness.
They are. Starting with that Council of Enterprises, that provides some oversight. But the plan is to transition to a more decentralized governance model over time. It's about finding that sweet spot stability and community-driven innovation.
Sounds like they're taking a measured approach, not rushing into things.
Right. They understand that governance is key to long-term success. But there's another, perhaps less obvious challenge we should talk about: potential job displacement.
Yeah, that's always a concern with new tech. It's the fear of the unknown.
And it's valid. We need to be honest about the impact this could have on jobs. And we need solutions, retraining programs, policies that encourage job creation in these new fields.
Like they say, technology should make our lives better, not replace us.
Exactly. And that takes proactive thinking from everyone: policymakers, leaders in tech. The benefits of these technologies, they need to be shared by everyone.
It's a collective responsibility then, not just a tech issue. It's about shaping the kind of future we want.
Couldn't agree more. And that's what's so exciting about being in this space. It's not just about the code. It's about the potential to create a more equitable, just sustainable world.
I love that. So after this deep dive, what's your biggest takeaway? What has you most fired up about Hashgraph and Hedera?
For me, it always comes back to empowerment. Imagine a world where we control our own data, where we have a say in how these systems are run. That's a future worth fighting for, and I think Hashgraph can help us get there.
That's an inspiring thought to end on. Thank you so much for taking us on this deep dive into the world of Hashgraph. You've given us a lot to think about.
It was my pleasure. And to everyone listening, remember, the future isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we build. Stay curious, stay informed, and let's get to work.